Hey, so we got our start time here, so I'll start rolling
Yeah,
in. We've
let's get
got
rolling.
yeah, let's go.
We've got a lot to cover, so we're going to be chopping wood today.
So welcome, and hopefully you guys like this unicorn or what the heck is a unicorn doing on this slide? And if you saw the social media post on there, that had a lot of hits. So I think people like unicorns out there, the secret unicorn lovers today.
Yeah,
So
this is a free sales lesson. Rule number one of sales is to be memorable, and the unicorn definitely, I think, pulled that off. So,
especially the little sparkle stars too. That was a good touch, Patrick. So I want to introduce myself, then I'm going to introduce Patrick in just a moment, let him introduce himself. But I want to explain why this webinar is even happening because this webinar today is not just HTA certified integrators, which is our usual webinar series. That's your branded mindshare. This isn't that. This webinar is open to HTA dealers and kind of the whole universe too. This was a really important topic I wanted a lot of people to hear. So for those of you who don't know what Home Technology Association is, my name is Josh Christian. I'm the CEO. I run it. And as you probably know, we're in the association that created the standard of professionalism for the integration space. You could look at it like the Michelin stars of this industry or a five-star safety rating, good housekeeping seal of approval, that kind of thing. It's a badge of honor, and it was designed and created to easily differentiate the companies that meet the standard away from the rest, the ones that are underperforming out there. And that's a problem. And to immediately build trust and credibility with your clients, with prospective clients and trade partners. So it really helps when you use those tools. So even though today's webinar is not an HTA webinar in the usual sense, we're not going to be going over a whole training on what that is, but we will touch on some tools here, the HTA tools, as they are appropriate to the discussion we're talking about today in sales. So why this webinar now? Like, why wasn't this part of the 2024 HTA series? Well, the secret on this is Patrick and I have known each other since the 90s, industry friends. We hadn't seen each other in a while, so we were having some coffee a couple months ago, and just like kind of old buddies getting reconnecting and tell me about the sales training he's doing. And the things that he was telling me blew my mind. I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. And it explains the problems that I see running the HTA in this industry quite a bit. So, as I mentioned, I've known him since the 1990s. We worked together for over a decade at the same luxury integration firm in LA. And I always known, and I was a hunter, and Patrick was on sales. And we'll get into what that means later. Patrick will define that. But what I noticed and witnessed is Patrick was a really good salesperson, but he became a really great salesperson. And how he did that's going to be explained today. Our careers diverged in 2014. He went on to become a sales training guru, not just for this industry, but mainly for other industries too, actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so he's going to get into that. And in a nutshell, what I learned from just having coffee over a couple of times with them is that there's these 5 stages of the sales process, which were an eye opener to me, and they should be an eye opener to you. And the ones that do all 5 of them well are almost impossible. They're the unicorns. So therefore, now you know why the unicorn is here. It's you don't find these things. So now you'll know you're going to learn some interesting math today, and I'll let him get in like 1 + 1 = 3 in this with what you're going to learn today. So knowledge. Before I turn over to Patrick, one saying that's really true: knowledge is power. And in today's webinar, if you apply what you learn here today, it's going to make you much, much more successful in your industry for sure. So that's why we're having this. It's a big thing for all of you to learn and use this information. Now I'm going to turn over to Patrick.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. So, like Josh mentioned, I have about 30 years of sales experience in the, technical sales, but also luxury home sales industry. I've known Josh about 20. In the last 10 years, I've spent coaching mostly subject matter expert, technical, and professional salespeople. And we have 3 areas that we focus on: better positioning, better people, and better processes. So we work with technology companies and lots of different industries on a one-on-one basis. And then as well as we've recently launched the Elite Sales Academy with Vital, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which is a group coaching program. And we're, this program that we're working on is designed to help luxury home salespeople at a more affordable like group rate rather than a really expensive one-on-one engagement. And but we'll talk about that later, and we'll have some more discounts and freebies and all kinds of stuff later on. So I'm really looking forward to getting started today for sure. So I guess we'll jump in here. Let me see.
Yeah.
All
So
right. Oh, yeah, questions. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
yeah, I'm gonna say if you have any questions, please use the Q&A session or button here in Zoom, and we'll either get to those at the end, or if it's on topic, Patrick will work them into
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So
Kind of keeping an eye on things as we go. So for sure.
yeah. So to kind of kick off this whole conversation, Patrick, you work in the CI channel, but also other channels. What are you seeing in the market right now? Are you seeing the industry slow down?
Yeah, so it really depends on the market, and it depends on the individual market that they're in, or the primary market, secondary market. It also depends on the company or the players on the team. What do they have in place? Do they have good industry partners already established? Do they have a good recurring revenue model already set up? Have they planned ahead and been doing the work already with good business development systems and processes where they're doing outbound efforts and outbound activities? Do they have their business and management economics sorted out, or have they been living on deposits too long, right? Like the deposits kind of cover a lot of sins. So
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense right now too, and I see that too in speaking with integrators when I'm on the phone with them too. And I notice
Mhm.
at the real high end luxury side of things, like those companies that have their stuff really together are actually doing quite well right now. But yeah, a lot of markets are softening up. So
Mhm.
if any of our attendees today are in a market where they're starting to see things soften or slow down, what do you suggest that those folks do right now?
Yeah. So the unfortunate reality is that you're a little bit late to prep for this immediate cycle that we're in right now. But the good news is that the preparation you do now will pay off, for many, many years to come if you do the work that we're talking about. The other bit of good news is that there's going to be a flurry, and I'll explain why it's good news in a minute, but there'll be a flurry of temporary business development activity from your competitors if they are slowing down, but they won't stick with it. It's just short-term reactionary activity, and they'll give up the second it starts to get busy. They always do. We always see that. And the key is to plan and do the work now, and develop the habits for for the future. So if you are not at all prepped for this right now, you just kind of have to, we say, do it the hard way, but know that this is like the last time you'll do it the hard way, because you're going to start to put the things in place that we're talking about. So what does the hard way look like? It means, drum up short-term business the best you can, call your old clients, go one at a time, search and destroy and see how they're doing. There's, other ways you can utilize some articles and blog posts from third parties such as HTA. I know HTA has a nice blog post article that you can share that talks about how long do these systems last. So that's something maybe Josh can send out to you guys after. And then you got to just kind of tough it out with your cash reserves right now. So that's like the short term. But what we're going to do is we're going to build muscle memory to carry you through the next cycle. And if you get good at the outbound business development now, you're going to be much further downfield than the rest of your competition at the next slowdown, the next time it slows down. So you want to do that work now.
Yeah, thanks. And something that Patrick, you and I can relate to, the firm that we worked at, we weathered the 2008 slowdown.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sucked, right? But we hung on to, we worked at a pretty large firm, but we hung on to a lot of the
Yeah.
folks. And part of that is because we had a really good process back then of reaching out and talking to those trades a lot. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
all felt the pain, but we had a pretty big network of people sending us referrals, and we want that all for our members too, right?
Yeah.
That
Totally. It softens the slowdowns for sure. And we'll talk about exactly how shortly. Also, some of us old timers, I remember in the late 90s when it was, we had like .com weirdness. And then 2001, after September 11th, was also another kind of economic challenge. And then, like you said, 2008. So they're always going to be cycles. It's just the nature of the way the world works. So
yep. And
yeah.
you mentioned being that guy, right? So every one of those corrections there's those ones out there that haven't done their homework and they're out there beating the bushes really desperately and
Right.
lowballing bids to try to get work. So how do all the folks listening today avoid being that guy? What
Yeah.
systems?
So that's a great question. So the first thing we're going to cover today is what we call the sales Bible, and I'll pull that up on the screen and we'll cover that. And this Bible is very deep. This can go very deep and wide. So today I'm going to give you like an overview crash course, if you will, and hit some key areas that matter most specifically for today's conversation. But we do lots of sessions on this. We've done some stuff on YouTube as part of ESA. We go way deep into this Bible and really kind of help our members understand what this all means in their particular business. So let me pull up a screen share here, radio, and
and everyone that's listening, this when Patrick was explaining this concept to me is what was the eye opener to me. I'm like, oh my God, this explains so much.
yeah, it's a really great tool, and I use this a lot with my one-on-one clients. And what this tool does is this covers the sales cycle. Think of this covering the sales cycle from beginning to end for just about any type of purchase that you do. Now, if you're gonna, go grab some fast food or something like that, it's a little bit different, but you could still overlay it here. But larger purchases like homes or cars or systems or anything that is a little bit more of a decision-making process, you can lay it all into this. And the reason we're going to cover today is because we're going to lay some foundation and give you some reason for some of the struggles that we're seeing as things start to slow down in the marketplace. So what I'm going to do is jump right into this. And at the beginning, so the way to read this, if we will, is it's a chronological. Think of this chronological order. So there's a big green arrow at the top, and we're going to start from left to right. So the first stage, where it says stage 1, this is really all about general awareness. And this, from a customer or buyer's perspective, is that they're not super aware or interested in whatever it is that you do or have for sale. And your job as a service provider at this stage is to create that awareness and create the desire to learn more about your company. Now, this first stage sometimes can be done with technology. We've seen companies do it really well with technology. Think of digital marketing, social media, email campaigns, webinars, that kind of thing. That's all in your stage 1 phase. And then we've also seen people do it with, or companies do it with people. So you can have a leverage technology to help support this role, or you can have a person or some combination thereof. And a person is really going to be one that's, hosting events, starts to get into some like the lunch and learn stuff and some of the other things where we're just kind of getting out there and getting, more awareness to your company at this stage. And really the job of either the technology or the person at this stage is to tell the company story, make other people aware of what you have to offer, and just, be part of the community and get people excited about what you do. So that's our general awareness stage. And I'm going to hit these stages in overview, and then we're going to come back to stage 1 and 2, because that's kind of what today is all about, right? We're going to talk about these first two stages. Stage 2, this is generally done as a person. These people's job here is really all about targeting and qualifying. Those are the two big areas. They're looking for really specific opportunities, and they are qualifying those opportunities. So it's target, qualify. And ideally, they're getting some leads and activities from the awareness stage, and then they're also generating some of their own based on the connections and network within the company. So that's where we're gonna kind of camp out. But let me move forward just a little bit and then hit these other 3 stages to give you some context. So stage 3 is our subject matter expert. This is where normally our technical salespeople live. They live in this box. This is where I kind of naturally lived, and that means that we know the technology, whatever it is in the integration space. It's the integration technology. If it's manufacturing, they know that I work for like manufacturing companies, metal manufacturing, plastics manufacturing, all that kind of stuff. And they're the experts that really know the technology. So that's where they live, is right in the middle of this 5-stage sales process. And their main job is to create solutions or find solutions for prospects. So think about this stage as an integrator. People come to you with like, I'm building a new house. I know I need something, but I don't really know what I need. That's kind of where the subject matter expert jumps in and helps out, is right in that spot. So, and they're working with customers who, like I said, or they're already kind of exploring and defining what they want, and they kind of know there's something out there. And so we're gonna do needs analysis. We're gonna assess what they're looking for. We're gonna come up with a good solution, and then we're gonna prove the fit, what we call prove the fit. So that's like our solution is going to meet your needs, and here's why. So that's a big common area, and that's where most integrators kind of are. I don't know if Josh, if that is kind of what you've seen, but that's where I've seen a lot of integrators kind of live in that space.
Yes.
The expert.
I fully agree.
Yeah. Like I said, that's where kind of where I was at too. So, stage 4, this is negotiate and close stage. Oftentimes this can be the owner of the company, or it can be, if we're talking about unicorn salespeople, they got to do all the jobs. So they're going to be doing that too. And, but sometimes it can be the owner of the company, or sometimes it can also be, if you notice, both of them have the tiger, and we'll talk about the animals in a second. But sometimes the hunter can come back in to the process and re-engage and help close the deal. So these guys are pretty quick on their feet. They understand math. They know what a good deal looks like for the company and what a good deal doesn't look like for the company. And they're kind of there to help ask for the business. And stage 5 in an integration firm, stage 5 can be, that can be your service department. That can be account managers. Some companies have account managers that are just kind of nurturing existing accounts and keeping key accounts content. And these folks are, looking for upsells. They're looking for add-ons. They're looking for service plans, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of our stage 5. So I realize I've done that kind of quick. I just want to give you like an overview. Josh, do you have anything to jump in there before I kind of move forward?
What you'll probably get into this, but the thing that is the eye opener here is that most integration firms seem to have one person trying to do all of this.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work. That's if there are ones that can do it really, really well, then it's the unicorn. And like, to me, like, the personal interest I had on this is like, I kind of said it wrong earlier. I was more, not so much a hunter. I was more like the influencer guy. I did a little, my role prior was more influencer, a little bit of hunter. So I was kind of like a dual role.
Like something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is different than you. You were a stage 3. So like to have me go in your role or you'd go to my role was an uncomfortable thing, right?
Yeah,
so I know, because I used to go in there, Patrick, why aren't you like knocking on doors and doing these things? And like, that wasn't you, like we didn't know back then. We just knew like, I hate doing this and you like doing that. You just do your own thing, get out of my office. and we made it work. But why I want so many integrators to know this too, it's like, for all of you that know HTA, we're beating the drum constantly about, hey folks, go out there and build relationships with your trade partners, and realizing that if you're like a Patrick, you're the expert, you're stage 3, that might not be your thing, and don't feel guilty about it now, right? Like, oh, okay, work with someone that can help with 1 and 2. So like, to me, this was like the mind blow moment. Oh my God,
there's
for integrators this.
There's a broader, term. Like sometimes people say like, oh, you got to work on your weaknesses and get better, at the stuff that you're not good at. I'm more of a fan of, you got to be competent at your weaknesses. Like I would need to be competent at, hunting, let's say, activities and awareness. So I know what good looks like and all that stuff, but I need to triple down on my strengths. So instead of like focusing so much on your weaknesses, I like to encourage my salespeople to just be competent in the other stuff, but really triple down on the strengths. So to your point, most integration firms and most integration, not just integration firms, but most technology companies start with the expert or the engineer, right? They're the ones who start the company. Maybe they worked for somebody else, and they went out on their own, and now they're in business. And they have to do all of the jobs, especially if they start as a one-man show, or they start as a one-man show with like maybe their spouse helping them with, the office work. And then they add a couple of technicians, and then on all of a sudden, they don't realize they've built a whole business around themselves. But the key is that most people start one of these stages and they have to fill in all the other stages. And I'll explain, we're going to go into more depth in a bit on the specific challenges of that. But to your point is reason we call them unicorn, or we call them a 360-degree salesperson, is that they have to do all of the jobs. And I want to come back to the animals. So people who are generally, these animals represent the general types of personalities that are more naturally successful in these roles. So if you have a stage 1 general awareness, those are typically your high expressives. They sometimes are a little bit lower on drive or dominance, but they're high expressive. They're people. They like to get out. They like to be with folks, and they like to tell a story. And that's, I think, where Josh found his kind of niche and was pretty successful there. So this is kind of like JC. And then our stage 2 folks, that's where they usually ramp up a little bit more drive and dominance. So they're a little bit stronger and more direct, and they don't mind the door being shut in their face like over and over and over again, and just highly driven people. Our stage 3 subject matter experts, these are generally less assertive folks. They're higher detail, and they're not really like the social butterfly type people. So that's kind of like where I live in that spot. And then our negotiators and closers are back to that high drive, high dominance, kind of a lower empathy. They're not emotionally wrapped up in the deal, if you will. They just want to solve a problem, get the customer squared away, and take care of things. This is an area that I also kind of like when I was selling. This was an area that I kind of lived in. And then our stage 5 folks are what we call higher amiables. So they're really caring. They genuinely care about other people. They genuinely want them to be happy. And these are the folks you really want in that phase of your sales process, because they're going to make sure your customers are happy and that they continue to, do business with you, that they continue to send you referrals, that they continue to talk positively about you in the community. So just a little personal thing on mine. When I sold, I was pretty good at these 2 phases. This stuff like terrified me. And then this stuff was super boring to me. That was my deal. So I think for Josh, I'll let you speak to you. Where do you felt like you were successful and interested in, and things that you didn't like?
Yeah, I would be more that stage 1, stage 2 type person. What was me?
Mhm.
I really like building relationships, like trying to think through the solution. How are we gonna keep constant flow of business coming into this company? And to me, I was like, that's the natural thing, to go out there and talk to these folks and build relationships with architects, designers, and builders. And I got pretty good at it. I
Yeah.
wish I had the training back then to do it. It's just kind of my natural thing to do.
Yeah.
That's what worked for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And we'll naturally kind of gravitate to some of these areas. Like you were talking about, like let's say events or going to do things like that. Whenever those things were like put on my schedule, I would always dread them for like weeks. Like if there was some sort of social event or something like that back in the day, I would be like, oh, I don't want to do that. I just kind of want to be in my box and do my thing. But I had to do all of the things in order to make the business work, because that's what we knew and that's how we started out. And again, this is not just limited to integrators. I work with a lot of different companies that do a lot of different technology, and it's pretty standard. We have our process engineers, our software engineers, our technical engineers, and then sometimes companies will put a burden on them to do new business development, and you're really kind of pushing the rock up the hill, because it's just not something that they're going to naturally want to do. And those activities get get pushed to the bottom of the barrel and the bottom of the timeline every single time. In
yeah,
much the same way, I wouldn't necessarily hire a super outgoing, gregarious salesperson to then lock them in a basement and have them build systems and design systems. Right? It just doesn't work. So anywho, now that we've kind of done that foundational work, I'd like to actually answer your question. Oh, one thing I want to talk about. So when we're in this stage of awareness, a lot of times people are like, where do I start and what do I do? This is an area for sure I want to talk about that HTA can definitely help you. HTA produces a lot of content, a lot of tools. I'll give you a plug here, Josh, and then you can probably speak to this much better than I can. But when you're looking for reasons to connect with people and you're looking for people to do outbound connections, HTA has quite a bit of things to support dealers in that area. So you want to I'll put something on the screen here for you. Talk about
Yeah.
the design partner
Yeah.
program.
Thanks. This is like probably the longest part. I'll talk about the HTA tools because I see how they fit into this matrix quite a bit. So, for one thing, if for those that are listening that are not HTA certified yet, go out and do it. See if you qualify. You start an application online. And we'll get to that later. But the idea with this is it's kind of the foundation for success because they're like I said, what we do. We set the standard of quality, but it's designed to build trust and credibility, especially with trade partners as they're out there marketing to these folks. And I could, in too long of a story to tell you all this on the short webinar, but a lot of thought went into things like you see on the screen here, this HTA design partner program. And just in a nutshell, what this is, I've been working with these trades since the 90s. And in my role here at HTA, interviewing architects, designers, and builders, like what do they hate about our trade? What would it take for you, architect, designer, builder, to bring an integrator to your project early and listen to what they were looking for and the attitudes and the behaviors to avoid, and we bake that into a code of conduct, which is an opt-in thing we call HTA design partner. So I won't get into it fully here, but for those integrators out there, we're really looking to start this and build some credibility and trust. If you're going to do, especially in stage 1, stage 2 sales, get HTA certified. It helps compress the time it takes to meet someone, to turn them into giving you business early. Get certified, opt into this design partner program, which is a free opt-in for HTA certified dealers. So, once we have a suggested elevator pitch, and when an architect, designer, builder hears this, it's a new way to approach them because most integrators, every integrator that's not HTA does the same thing. Doesn't matter if they're a trunk slammer or the best integrator in town. We got the best brands, the best service, the best programmers, the best techs, blah, 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 right? It's the same thing. So they're all saying the same thing. Stand out. Say, hey, we're one of the few percent that meet this standard. Here's what the standard is. It's published. When they read that, they go, why, this needed to happen 20 years ago. Where you been all my life, right? So for those that hear that works. This also kind of going on with this slide here, the design partner program. This is again for advanced integrators, and something that we're big proponents of is charge for design. You are a professional integrator. You should get paid for your work, just like the other consultants that architects bring into their projects, right? So you deserve a seat at their table. We're helping you do that with this program. And for those that are interested in learning, it's not on the slides here, but we have some resources, the top 7 architect marketing tips, the top 7 interior designer marketing tips, and the top 9 builder marketing tips, which are something we help our dealers with to, all these steps really. And the next slide, this thing is something we make. This is another tool. It's a touch point. So this kind of fits into various stages of the process, but a great touch. And it's a form that we've called the project technology assessment form. The story behind this, trade partners asked for this. This wasn't like our invention. The work that I do at HTA with these design and build associations, they asked for a 1-page cheat sheet of all the different technology systems that you put in so they could hand to their client and cover their butt so they don't forget to bring this up. So it was a great idea. And now we even brand them for our integrators. So all the HTA integrators get these things baked in and built for them. And it's a great touch point to go out there. You have a reason to stop by, hand it to them in paper form, or you could send it to them as an interactive PDF. And if they build, if you go to the next slide, because there's a couple links. It's not big enough on your screen to see this, but there's a couple links on that form that if you send it to them digitally, it says calculate a budget. Everyone on this call has probably played with our budget calculator, and this is a great tool also for the trades. If you're an HTA dealer and you have we code it. We code this form when we send it to you. So when they get to the bottom of the budget, you see the little red arrow, there'll be a checkbox to send the budget back to you. Like, imagine architect, designer, builder. building a budget and then emailing it and say, okay, I got a client for you to meet, and this is the budget we came up with. That's happening. So a really neat tool that will help them help themselves. And the feedback from the design and build communities on our calculators were very positive. The National Association of Home Builders has it on their website. So
Oh, wow.
that's
Wow,
huge.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's
So
huge. Yeah.
yeah, over 120,000 members in NAHB, and now they could go and build budgets. So
Yeah.
um, these are some tools that we built, and this is another step on some advice for stage 5 is on the farmer part of there. Get a
Yeah.
newsletter.
Hmm.
Something like a newsletter. If you don't
Yeah.
have a sales department or something like, I mean, excuse me, like a service department to do that, get a newsletter and share out some great articles, and that'll help you. And another thing that I did, just sharing some advice, there are a lot of really cool products coming out there right now, and if there's something that's design centric, like CCTVs that pop up, or TrueFig, that kind of stuff, invisible speakers, things that you and me might be like, yeah, well, these have been out for years, but a lot of them
Yeah.
don't know about it. Call them,
Right.
be that SME, stay on there. Like when
Yeah.
you call them with that stuff, they're like, man, God, this guy knows a lot. They know a lot about technology. You want to be seen as a subject matter expert to them.
Yeah, exactly. I just want one thing you mentioned is about like everybody sounding the same. In their value proposition, and we did a session on this in the Elite Sales Academy a few weeks ago, which was really good. Is that we challenged our members to come up with their value proposition. We gave them some homework to do in between the calls and all that stuff. It was very difficult to get people to come, to their 2 to 3 top value proposition differentiators that their competitors in their area cannot say. And so it's, while everybody does that, the reason everybody does that is because it's very difficult. And as part of ESA, we try to challenge you to do hard things. And that was one of the harder ones that we did. Um, so thanks for those tools. That's super helpful. I, hopefully this makes sense here, this overlay, because I'm going to jump into, I tried to lay that foundation with the sales Bible tool. And now I want to go into like actually answering your question on like why we're seeing some of these challenges. So we know now that our sales process has these steps, and we know that those steps are best handled by different types of people. So how does that play out in real life? And I'll show you exactly how that shows up. We're going to do a little bit of arts and crafts here. So typically what happens is you have business development activities. So you either start in a company, or you start a company, or you get hired, or whatever you're doing, and you're as a salesperson. And what happens is you start to ramp up your business development activities. So these are, activities and, other outbound touches and all that kind of stuff. So you start to do that, those activities and touches, and you start to ramp up and do them. And then inevitably what happens when you start doing those business and activities and all that good stuff is that you make a sale, right? And congratulations, you made your sale. And what most technical sales folks do is then they start to work on the delivery of that sale, and the activity involved in completing the sale and delivering on the promise. Because if you remember, we're doing all 5 sales roles. We found the deal. We were the expert on the deal. We closed the deal, and now we're going to deliver the deal. So inevitably, what happens is while we got that sale, we now stopped, or we start to slow down on those activities, and we don't keep it up. We don't participate in all the stuff that we were doing that got us that sale, because we get quote unquote busy, and also because we're probably a technical person who's not super excited about doing those business development activities. So we've pushed it to the back burner anyway. And now we have a legitimate excuse not to do those activities, because I got to work on this deal. I got to take care of these customers. I got to make sure we don't screw it up, et cetera, et cetera. So what happens is you start to complete that, you're working on that sale, your sales activities are dropping. And then you get down here into the valley and you're like, oh crud, I don't have anything in my pipeline. My pipeline's, not good. So now I'm going to start back up and start doing those activities again. And, and then I make another sale, and then we start all over again. and we drop off. And so this is pretty typically what we see with technology companies and with technical sales folks. They don't want to do those activities. They know they have to do those activities. They do the activities. The activities are effective, and they close a deal, and then they stop doing them. And it's just this constant cycle. So what happens now is that if we take that against revenue, and I'll use a green for revenue because like money. Oh, and a quick note here. When I say sale, we just did a video on this the other day for Elite Sales Academy. When I say sale is, I mean a signed piece of paper and a check. So I've been married to a lovely lady for, we've been together over 30 years, and she always reminds me of that. Signed piece of paper and a check. So if I tell her I did something really great, she's like, where's my check? Where's my signed piece of paper? So that's what a sale is. And revenue is the execution of the work. So that's where you recognize the revenue and you actually do the work and you process it. So when I use those two terms, that's what I mean, just as a point of clarification here. So now I'm going to talk revenue for a second. And with revenue, we start out at basically no revenue if we're a new salesperson or a new company. And we got this sale that we are now executing on. And as we execute on that sale, our revenue starts to climb. So at the same time, our business development activities are falling, our revenue is increasing, which is really bad negative reinforcement on bad behavior because you're not feeling the pain in the moment, right? Like I'm not doing my homework in my future self, my business development activities, but I'm making money because I'm getting this job done and the revenue is climbing. So my revenue is climbing. And now what I've hit here is the bottom of business development activities. I'm at the peak of revenue, and then revenue starts to slide because I got that job done, and now I'm filling my time with smaller jobs or other things that have some revenue. I'm not totally broke, but I'm not really getting that revenue going, and so the revenue starts to come down here, and it bottoms out again. At the same time, I made another sale, and now I've made that sale, so my revenue starts to climb again. And so you have this kind of ebbs and flows deal where revenue is inverse of sales and activities and business development activities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to me it does.
Yep. And so it's super challenging to manage a business that way. And so it's this like vicious cycle of like back and forth, back and forth. So what we'd like to do is if we go back to here, and if I have someone who's hard focused on these two things, or I maybe have a little bit of technology helping me over here in awareness, and I have, person helping here, and then I have the rest of my team in stage 3, 4, and 5, what that allows me to do, and this is where, you have a definite advantage with larger company. With smaller companies, there's other things that we can do too. But what happens now is that let's say I have somebody doing business development activities only. They're not responsible for delivering on closed sales or anything else. They're just working on business development activities. Ideally, they don't even have any customers because the instant they get a lead or an opportunity, they hand it off to a salesperson. So ideally, that's what you would do. But they hard focus on business development activities, and everybody gets slow, right? There's a slump all the time. So when they slump or when they slow down, they're going flat. They're not going down. And then they pick back up on their opportunities. And then maybe they have a little slowdown and they pick back up on their opportunities, but they're always climbing in a positive direction. And then what we have is our subject matter expert or the rest of our team working on actually closing those deals and delivering on those deals. They're going to track along with them. And so we're constantly tracking in an upwards direction with sales versus activities. And you can kind of see how now we're instead of this yin and yang, instead of the yin and yang, we now have things kind of tracking in the same direction together. And so does that, I'll pause there and just kind of see if that has a question. Also, we need more questions. So guys, give us questions up in the Q&A section, please. We'd love to have some more questions. So Josh, do you have any comments or questions on this?
Yeah, a comment just popped in my head that now I really love this. This is like, to me, an eye opener for everyone listening, that you might want to get this biz dev person that's going out there and building these relationships. So here's an eye-opening kind of scary statistic. So the last 3 years, I've been teaching at the International Builder Show, and that's got builders and interior designers there. And I've been teaching some classes, and I ask a show of hands, how many of them are working with an integrator on a regular basis? It's always the minority of people in the room. Some of
Okay.
them, and then when I explain what an integrator is, I've literally had this happen and it freaked me out. This has happened this past year, in Vegas at the big show. They're like, oh, so and I like the look on my face must have been like a ghost. They said, so these integrators, are they like part of an electrician? Like how do I find them? And I said, no, it's its own trade. Oh,
Right.
so and these are like, wow. And what that tells me, it's not that they're idiots, but and going back another story a couple of years ago, this was at a buying group conference. This goes back to 2019. And I was invited to a buying group conference, and they had architect panelists at both of them, and both of them were epic fails. It was really it was like watching The Office, that secondhand embarrassment of
Cringeworthy. Yeah.
very cringe, right? Because you had these architects that were amenable to be there and have this conversation with an audience full of integrators, and moderated panel. Everybody had a microphone, and the conversation was talking past each other, and the architects couldn't understand, like, why would I need to bring an integrator into their project early? And I'm like, what the heck is happening here? How are we, and this is in case 2019, how are we in 2019, this industry's been around for a while. How can they not know that? I don't necessarily fault them. I fault our industry, because
Sure.
there's too many stage 3 folks, right? Or too many experts that are not out there talking about this industry. And I cleaned up out here in LA because I was that guy doing it there. And I thought everybody else is doing this. No, they're not. So there's a lot of blue sky out there of folks that don't have an integrator that they know and rely on. And if you're a good one and you follow HTA best practices and things and kind of learn from all the brain trust that we have here, oh my God, there's so much room out there for a really great relationship. So take this
Yeah.
to heart and maybe get that biz dev person that you don't have yet to go out there and do that. And then you do your thing. Like, you be the Patrick, you be the expert, but get your stage 1, stage 2 thing figured out and look out. You're going to really see crazy new success.
Yeah. And I was talking to another client just this morning, actually, before we met, he's at a different phase in his company where he's thinking of, like, what does retirement look like in 5 years or 4 years? And he's in an area where he's got to replace himself. And he's primarily been, kind of in this area. And so we're talking about, okay, what does it look like to supplement that with stage 1 and 2, so that he's not the sole breadwinner in the company and he has a little more flexibility to, do something more that he wants to do. And, I've worked with a lot of companies in that phase, kind of getting companies to that owner replacement phase, right? Where we don't have any sales processes documented. So we build a playbook, and then, we don't have a really good team in place. The owner of the company is the primary revenue generator. So these are areas. So if there's anyone on this webinar that's in that stage, that's another thing you got to think about is, what does this look like when you want to slow down, or when you want to travel the world, or when you want to retire? How do you replace yourself in the sales revenue generation direction? So, more questions? Any more questions in the Q&A?
No questions in the Q&A.
Okay.
But that, yeah, totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So I'll do a little, I think, let's pause here. Stop this and come back to it. So just, kind of a quick summary back to the unicorn thing. So if we look at the old way of doing things, we have this 360-degree salesperson and the activities that they're naturally inclined to do. Are they a hunter? Are they an expert? Are they a farmer? They're going to have with that as their natural style and their natural preferred activities. The old way is we have this, we task someone to do all 5 stages. Some stages are going to get done well. Some stages are not going to be done well. And especially in smaller companies, I often hear, like, oh, does that mean I need 5 different salespeople? No, you don't need 5 different salespeople. But leveraging, you can leverage technology in phase one, you can leverage your service department in stage five. You can do some team selling in the middle. Like there's lots of ways to do things so that you can free up your people to be in their highest and best use, or use their superpower, or whatever, methodology you subscribe to. The really interesting thing that I've seen is that if you have an integrator, or take that back, if you have any technical salesperson that's responsible for all five stages, there seems to be a natural capacity limit of 1.5 million to 2.5 million in revenue. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. I've seen it in integrators, I've seen it in engineers, I've seen it in software companies, I've seen it in manufacturing. If you're responsible for all five stages, that's your number, $1.5 to $2.5 million. And that's our unicorn person, right? We've been talking about. And the challenge with that, you have two challenges. Let's say you're a $5 million company and you want to make it to $10 million. If you've built your system around what we've talked about today, you're doing 5 million with a couple of sales generators and you want to go to 10 million. Now you have to go find two more unicorns. It's very hard to scale businesses that way. If you're at 5 with 2 people and you want to go to 10, you got to go find 2 more unicorns, and unicorns are hard to find. They're very localized. If anyone on this webinar has tried to hire a salesperson from another market, it can be kind of challenging because you're trying to hire a technical salesperson who has their little network and try to get them to move markets. That's always tricky. Or you end up into a battle with someone in your own market, and that's kind of messy. Nobody wants to deal with. So scaling and growth is really tricky. The other thing that's really tricky is replacement. If you're a $5 million company and one of your unicorns leave, you have a huge hole in your sales pipeline. And because our sales sales roadmap is so long and sales cycle is so long, that sometimes that hole doesn't show up for 6 months or a year or even a year and a half, where you lose someone, you're like, oh, we're fine, we'll be okay. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, 12 months later, you're like, wow, this is kind of slow. And now we got to go out and find another unicorn. So, so for growth and replacement, it's really tough. What we're talking about is a better way. And the better way is that we have someone focused as the expert. We like to call them BERT. So BERT, the expert, they're the specialist. They present, they design deals, they solve problems, excuse me. And they're the expert in that middle kind of area of the sales process. And then we have a hunter. We call them Chase the Hunter. Their job is targeting, networking, relationships, events, outreach, connections. And they're really focused on that type of work. And what you can do there then is you're decoupling your company revenue from the individual business activities. If you remember my chart that I had up on the screen, you are completely attached with your revenue numbers are completely attached to individuals' business development activities. So we want to make sure that we are not kind of doing that anymore going forward if we want to really grow the companies that we're a part of. So
Patrick, when you and I were talking about this, you told me kind of the math, the 2 plus to 2.5 plus 1 equals 6.
Yeah.
Explain that too, because that I think is really relevant for folks to hear that, because that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So when I was an integrator selling, I did about $2.5 million a year. That was kind of my cap, my number. I was working really hard and always busy. So I did 2.5 million I had about a 10-year run of $2.5 million a year. And doing the subject matter expert role, doing the minimum amount of stage 1, stage 2 activities that I could do, and then avoiding stage 5, like I said, because it was super boring. So I was doing 2.5 million. And I started working with another salesperson who was doing $1 million, but he was really good at stage 1, stage 2. So what I asked people is, okay, if he was really good at stage 1, stage 2, he was doing $1 million. I was pretty good at stage 3 and 4. And I was doing 2.5. So what's 2.5 million plus 1 million? People kind of think about it a little bit, and you go, okay, well, it's 3.5 million. And I say, no, it was actually 6, because when we were both working together in our highest and best use, in utilizing our superpowers and our personality styles in the areas and the phases that we liked, we were able to generate much more than the sum of just the two parts working together. So that's where I say that 2.5 plus 1 is 6, not 3.5.
And that is a powerful thing to know, right? And going back to something, Patrick, another thought that popped in my head about that is we all know when when they try to push us out of our natural style and comfort level, like right,
Yeah.
you say push the rock uphill is a good
Yeah.
illustration. So
Yeah.
if you're a business owner and you're trying to get this out of your salesperson and tell them to do stage one, stage two, and they suck at that or they hate it,
Yeah.
then they're going to burn out. And they might be a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
more tempted to go take a job somewhere else. But
Yeah.
if you're working with their superpower and you figure this out because you heard this today, you go through some kind of sales training like this, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to put this person and this person and get that synergy that Patrick just mentioned. Now they're more successful financially and emotionally and a
Yeah.
lot less.
Happier.
Yeah, they're a
Yeah.
lot less willing to go move elsewhere. They're gonna be a lot more loyal to your company because you're like, I'm happy here. I'm making
Yeah.
a good living and I'm doing what I like to do, not being forced to do stuff I don't want to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so that the term for what you just use is adaptation. We can all adapt as needed for short amounts of time, right? Like if I locked you in a basement and said, Josh, I need you to review these spreadsheets in detail for the next 6 months, you're like, oh, okay, sure, I could do it. I'm going to hate it, but I could do it. If I said I need you to do this for an indefinite amount of time, then you start to adapt your style, and it really burns a lot of energy and actually burns legitimate calories and causes a lot of stress. So adaptation is something anyone can do for a short amount of time, but it's very dangerous when you go longer times. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, if you've ever done those personality profile type tests and have your staff do that, that's another good way to find out where they like to live and where they don't like to live. And you find out what their natural style is. And if you utilize your folks to their natural style, your
yeah,
company will be more successful. That's very much aligned to that.
yeah,
We
for
had a
sure.
question come in here. Oh, you're answering it, typing an answer
No,
here.
I'll take it live. Yeah. So Jose was asking, what do you recommend for a single person shop? So totally understand. Um, Part of the issue there is, I like you said, not a fan of the outreach. I appreciate. First of all, self awareness is huge, right? Secondarily, is a lot of partnerships, and you could leverage technology. So if you could put some basic outbound marketing pieces in place to get you started, um, until you can build up enough business where you can make the leap to either hire somebody part-time or develop some partnerships part-time. Maybe there's somebody in your market that's talking about some other trade or some other group of people that you could work a deal with them where they could then also talk about your company, so you don't have to support the full burden of a full-time employee. But I would encourage you to get on the basics, and the basics being newsletters, some social media presence, email campaign. Email campaigns are still very effective or when people know who you are, right? Like if your clients heard from you via an email or a newsletter, they would totally check it out and totally read it. And leveraging other technology pieces along the way until you can kind of ramp things up and get your revenue numbers up. The other thing part of that, and the reason why we're doing the CSA Academy, is getting really good at sales so that your deals are closing larger, they're closing faster, they're closing more profitable, so your company makes more money, so then raise the boat and be able to help support another full-time employee. So some ideas there.
That's great. And for those listening, you're like, oh, great. Even at this basic level, like you were saying, kind of table stakes foundation, get a newsletter going. Just know there's folks out there that you could hire that service out.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're
yeah,
super busy wearing all these hats, so you don't have to do that yourself too.
yeah,
And for those for the HTA folks, you should already know this, but you could leverage our articles in your newsletter, so you don't have to come up with like original content. We
yeah,
allow our dealers to kind of reshare stuff, and the
yeah.
articles are good. So there you
So
go.
one thing I want to just be noted. So we're getting tight on time. I want to wrap up the information about Elite Sales Academy and HTA. But Josh and I both have extra time. So I want to, Mike, we have two mics that have similar questions. I could totally answer those questions. Plus, anybody else who has questions, we're going to stick around. But I do want to finish up for the people that have to go, throw a couple more slides up on the screen, and then we'll be around afterwards.
Yeah,
For
we're
that.
just being respectful of the time because we got like 4 minutes. So we'll show you a couple offers today, and then we'll come back to the Q&A. So
Totally.
all right,
Totally.
here you go.
So, all right. So for us, for Elite Sales Academy, we're um, uh, pulling up. Let me pull up here. Okay. So we are offering special introductory pricing because we're still building the program and we're still adding content and we're still doing all of the stuff to make this program super awesome. We have an introductory session for 6 months, starts next Friday, and we're extending the same pricing we had at Cedia. So you get to join us every Friday for 6 months for $19.97. There's tons of content. There's online content. There's online videos. We're giving you tools, downloads, PDFs, checklists, all kinds of stuff through the online portal, plus community where you'll be able to put in questions to ask to other people in the community and us. And we're going to be answering those questions throughout Elite Sales Academy. But the big thing is that weekly coaching calls with accountability to help you really get good at your craft. So that next session, next cohort starts next Friday. And then I'm on LinkedIn. So here's my QR code for get to my LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. Somebody says the link has expired. Okay. I'll have to check that out. Thank you. Which link was it, Mike? Was that the one on the left or the one on the right? And then, so I'm on LinkedIn mostly. That's where I'm at. And I'm on YouTube. I have some YouTube videos. We're always adding more stuff there. And then we're always putting more content up there. So historically, working with us has always been a one-on-one engagement, which can be a big investment, especially for some of the smaller teams. So now with this partnership with Vital, we have the online group coaching program. It's much smaller investment. Allows us to help a ton of other people, a ton of salespeople at the same time for a lot less money. And so that's all good stuff there. So I'll get on that link. You can send them or get that sorted out.
Yeah. And what I'm going to do too, in just a moment in chat, I'm going to put Patrick's, you see his LinkedIn thing there, but I'm going to put his direct link to to
my email
and his email in chat, and same with mine. So you can reach out to us personally, and don't worry about that. Obviously they'll figure that out. So that is in chat right now. Both are.
Yep. And so this, like I said, this is a special pricing. I'll get the link fixed, Mike. Thank you for that. But this is special pricing that we offered at Cedia for the first group that starts, and we're super excited to get started next week. It's going to be awesome. And then we're going to give out after this, we're going to send you this little cheat sheet that talks about the 5 different roles and a little bit about each of them, just as a reminder for what we talked about. And then we'll also send the recording out. So Josh, why don't you take it from there?
Yeah. So if any folks are listening today that aren't yet certified, the process of getting certified is go to htacertified.org, apply. There's the URL. You'll see it there. Then it's an online application process. This is not a pay to play. There's an application process that takes weeks to approve a dealer because of what we are. It's all about celebrating the excellent firms. There is a $400 application fee, which we lose money at $400. It takes us a while, a lot of work to process an app, but
it's an extensive process.
Yeah, it's legit. But if you start an application and finish it, that's the key thing, finish it. And to manage expectations, it's going to take about an hour and a half to finish the application. So you can save and exit. You don't have to do it all in one go, but finish it by November 1st. Use the code WINNER, which you get to in the last payment screen, and we'll take $200 off that $400. So you're paying basically $200 for an application fee. We only touched the surface of what HTA tools can do for you, but it works. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And I've been in this industry since '98 and crowdsourced from a lot of smart people, and all that knowledge from 250 the top integrators is also baked into HTA too. So a lot of stuff that really kind of dovetails with Patrick and his sales training is doing.
Yep. So that concludes our official quote unquote webinar.
Right on time.
Right on time. And we have our contact information in the chat. We'll send out some follow-ups to you guys so you have some of these tools and additional coupon codes and all that. We'll fix this link. So thanks everyone for coming. Super appreciate it. Like I said, Josh and I have some time. We're going to answer a few things. I'm going to jump on the mic questions for sure. So we'll talk about that in a second. But thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks. Hang out if you like, because Patrick, you want to get into some of these questions now?
Yeah. So big picture. So the questions were really, input about base pay versus bonus structure, and splits and all that stuff. So it's a very large question. Both those questions are large questions, but I'll give you the general outline. And the general outline is that the further you go down the line, you're going to have more base and less at risk. So what we like to say, and what I mean by that is that we have a larger percentage of your pay is base pay if you're in the later stages, and a larger percentage of your total, a larger percentage of your total compensation is base pay the further you go in, and a larger percentage of your base pay, or larger percentage of your total compensation is at risk pay the earlier you are. So what that means is that stage one, general awareness and target and qualify, I like to see those folks on pretty high commission payouts, not a lot of base pay. A lot of people will hire a hunter and pay him 80 or 90K a year. That's what I did when I first had my company. I hired a hunter and I paid him a ton of money at the time. And I netted nothing because they weren't hungry enough. So I like to see my hunters, especially, pretty hungry. Now, stage one awareness, like we talked about, that might be some technology and some people stuff. And sometimes this is the same person, especially in a smaller firm. So I'm just going to treat these as similar, which is lots of at-risk pay. So small base pay. And then I like to pay a lot on activities you want more of. So if you want meetings, if you want events, if you want touches, if you want all that stuff, highly incentivize that stuff. And then I usually like to give them a little bit of incentive tied to the overall growth of the company. So total revenue, total new sales, percentage growth, whatever. So a lot of at-risk pay on this side of the page, a lot of base pay on this side of the page, but I like performance pay in here. I like to have my engineer brains have a little piece of the action. Now, if we remember, they're analytic owls, they don't like risk. So they don't like a different paycheck every time. They like stability. They like, routine and pattern. So for those folks, what we do is we have a standard base pay, but we give them a little piece of the action for the stuff that they're working on. And the biggest reason to do that is that if this thing starts working, you're going to be piling more work on them. And so we want them to be incentivized to like that additional work. Same with the rest of your production team. I see so many companies that don't incentivize their production folks at all on the growth of the company or the total revenue. And so what's their incentive to do more work? You're going to keep piling on the work, but they're not incentivized to do more work. So same thing with our SME experts. These might be salespeople. They might be system designers, engineers, what I call client ready engineers. So engineers who are actually in front of clients, not engineers that are locked in the basement doing drawings. So a little bit of base pay there. And then our farmers, for sure, we want a little bit of incentive for upsells, add-ons, change orders, takeovers, fixes. So all that kind of stuff is a little bit of incentive on that. So that is the Mike and Mike. That is the crash course on this. I will tackle. There was another thing mentioned kind of about splits. So a word on splits is what we like to do is sometimes we do this. It depends on the company and the economics of all that. But sometimes what we'll do is we'll calculate a total commissionable amount, which is based on your cost of sales, which is based on your revenue model and all your economics of your business. But let's just say you have a total cost of sales. And then I like to put about 20% of that on the front of the here, and then about 80% of it, actually like 80% of it here if it's an actual subject matter expert salesperson. So we get what we call lead attribution. So these folks are incentivized on a commission for an individual deal, for going and finding that deal and bringing it into the company, approximately 20% of the total nut. So you have a small base pay so they can eat. You put a 20% performance pay on deals, and then you can shore in some other metrics and incentives in terms of like how many meetings they booked or what kind of lunch and learns that they have, or whatever kind of activities you want to do. It's just activities. So again, super crash course. I could do this for 4 hours on this one exact question, but I hope that helps Mike and Mike.
Thank you very much. That sounds good. It looks like that's the only questions we have now. We're 6 minutes past. Does anybody else have a question they want to add here before we cut it? While we're waiting for that to come in, this is being recorded, and a link will be sent to all because
Yeah.
we have a registration. There'll be a follow-up email with Patrick's tools and the offer, and so the discount code will be fixed there. No worries.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you want to apply HTA, that coupon code will be all in the same email here too. So looks like no more questions have come in. So thanks for your attention. As you probably, a lot of gears are probably turning your head like, whoa, and that's hopefully what happened today, because this is literally transformative and your process, and put these things to use, and the training that you get from this. And for those HTA dealers out there, you almost have an unfair advantage of the tools that we're giving you and how the two dovetail very nicely. There's so much business out there to get, and when you do these things, you're not going to have those peaks and valleys. That'll be greatly
Yep.
flattened out. So
Yep. Yep. Yep.
thanks everybody for your attention today. Thanks, Patrick. This has been a great webinar, and I think I'm going to take this elite sales. I'm not in sales anymore, but I'm just so blown away by this. I got to do it. And I just got to learn it, because I wish I knew this back in the 90s.
I know. I've been talking about that a lot. Like there's all these great
Holy
resources
crap.
now that we didn't have back then.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
now, we're learning now, right? So
Yeah.
it's a good time
Exactly.
to start now.
Exactly.
So thanks,
Exactly.
Patrick.
All
Hey,
right.
thank you, Mike, for the good words. And Barry, thank you for the shout out too of enjoying this. We like hearing that kind of feedback, that we're doing the right thing for all you folks out there.
For
So
sure.
have a great day,
All
and
right.
we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Thanks.
See you. Bye.